What's going on, guys? It is Josh's TV and Theories, and today I thought I'd do a little bit of a different angle and actually show you guys my face in the beginning of this video, since I haven't really shown my face much since my welcome video, if at all. I don't think I've shown it at all in the last two videos, so we're going to do it from this angle. But today I'm going to be ranking all the seasons of the 100 from worst to best, and there will be a little bit of a longer video. This video will contain spoilers, so if you have not seen the show, be prepared. I am going to contain spoilers in this video, so stay tuned. Seasons 1 through 7 from worst to best. Stay tuned.
Coming in at last place definitely has to be Season 5. Season 5, I think, is just kind of a mess all around. This is the season where Blood Reyna was introduced, the Aegis prisoners, Maddie, and I'm not a huge fan of Maddie. I think she's kind of annoying. They try to basically go and get the valley away from the Aegis prisoners after they take it away from obviously one crew, after they break them out of the bunker, and then Clark makes some bad choices, puts Maddie before her friends, and then eventually they march on to the valley to wage war with the prisoners because Blood Reyna burns the farm that Monty was going to save everybody with. And they went there initially, they kind of got beat up a little bit, and then Maddie had to take over and lead them back into what they called the Gorge. And McQuarrie, one of the prisoners, obviously set off the bomb that was going to destroy the valley, the last living place on Earth. So everybody had to go to space, including the Aegis prisoners and one crew, and everybody else from space, including Raven, Monty, Harper, Echo, Amori, Murphy, and Bellamy. And that's, of course, what led to Season 6. But overall, the lighting wasn't fantastic, the acting was okay, and this is why it's definitely in last place for me. In sixth place has to be Season 7. Season 7, initially when I first watched it, I thought it was actually a pretty good season. But going through and rewatching it again, it's kind of a messy season. It has its ups and downs, and obviously it's kind of all over the place, like Season 5. Of course, Bill Cadigan is shown here, and obviously Bardo, and just different planets are introduced, and they keep warping to different planets. They show how Octavia, once she went through the anomaly in Season 6, where she went with Diyoza, and of course Hope, her daughter, and you guys already know how I feel about Hope if you saw her in my last video. She's one of my least favorite characters in the entire show. But basically, they go, and Cadigan is basically trying to figure out the last war for mankind. And of course, it ends up not being a last war, it ends up being a test. And of course, Clark kills Bellamy, which is really, the worst part of the season, and, a big reason as to why I don't really like Clark. But of course, in the end, Bellamy was right, and they all transcended, except for a select few that decided to stay behind with Clark and not transcend, because she ended up killing Cadigan when Cadigan went for the test and she wasn't worthy. And everybody just kind of went with her and also Maddie transcended. She was brain dead because of Cadigan, but she decided to transcend. And of course, a couple saving graces of this season would probably have to be Murphy and Diyoza. I mean, both of them were fantastic in this season. The lighting was better in this season. The acting was better. But overall, it wasn't a fantastic season. I think too much planet jumping, and the story wasn't great. And of course, one of the main characters being killed off in a stupid way. So, coming in fifth place has to be Season 1, and Season 1 started it all. Without Season 1, there would be no rest of the show. This is where it started it all, with the Ark sending the 100 prisoners down to the ground. And of course, when they get down there, they realize they're not alone, and they have sort of like a mini war with the grounders that are already on the ground. And of course, the 100 try to get as much support from the Ark as much as possible. And of course, eventually the Ark coming down to the ground, and that leading into Season 2. Obviously, there was Lincoln that was introduced, who ended up being a great character in the next Season 2. Of course, he was tortured by Bellamy and a few others, because they wanted to get answers about why his people were getting killed by these grounders. And, in reality, they pretty much landed in Grounder territory, and that's why they were attacking them. But of course, they didn't know that, and of course, this was Bellamy's rebellious phase. They wanted to take off all the wristbands so the Ark wouldn't come down, but we eventually find out it was to save his own ass, because he ended up trying to kill the Chancellor to get down to the ground to be with his sister and make sure she was safe, who is Octavia. So the season overall is pretty good. Of course, it ends with them being in Mount Weather. After they have like a mini war with the Grounders, like I said before. And so overall this season, the acting was okay. The scenery was pretty good. And I think that it's a decent season, and it was an okay way to start off the show. Coming in fourth place is, I think, a very, very underrated season in Season 6. I think Season 6 is a fantastic season, but the other 3 seasons that I have ahead of it, I think, are better. Like I said, it's very underrated. All the primes are introduced. You know, they go to Sanctum down from the mothership after Monty and Harper sacrifice themselves, and Monty gets them to the new planet. They get down there, they meet all these new people, the primes, and they find out that the primes are people that were there hundreds of years ago, but they found a way to keep their minds and put them in mind drives and basically put them in other people that have black blood, and they basically get to live forever thinking the people are thinking that they're gods and basically worship them, and the 100 find out, and of course Clark has the black blood, night blood, and the head guy finds out, who is Russell Lightbourne. And he basically thinks he kills her to bring back his daughter, but in reality, her and Clark battle it out in her mind, and in the end, Clark wins. This is also the season where Gabriel's introduced, who's in my top 5. He basically leads the crusade into Sanctum to basically get rid of all the primes. The primes go up to space, and they basically try to go to a new planet because the 100 crew told the rest of the population of Sanctum that the primes kill their people to basically live forever, and that they're not gods. They don't become one with each other. And it's just a pretty good season overall. The acting is fantastic. The scenery is fantastic. And of course, at the end, they all reunite in Sanctum. And of course, they have Octavia's redemption arc, which I think is played out really well. And of course, at the end of the season, Hope makes her debut, stabs Octavia, and she disappears, with Bellamy basically crying at the end of the season. That leads to Season 7. So overall, a pretty good season, I think, and it's truly underrated. Coming in third place is Season 2, and Season 2 starts off with a bang, with the majority of the crew of the 100 being inside Mount Weather, while the rest was left outside because they didn't make it inside the dropship. And of course, Clark goes in there with the rest of the people in Mount Weather. She doesn't trust them, so she ends up escaping, going back to the crew that was left out. That's including Bellamy and a few others. Finn was a big part of this season. Of course, he went to go try to find where Clark was because nobody knew where she was, and he ends up massacring a village. And Clark gets back and basically doesn't like him for a while. And of course, the head of the Grounders, Lexa, they call her Hedda, which is the commander, basically wants him dead, and so Clark ends up mercy killing him, and then they become friends, and they go and march on to Mount Weather because they were restraining the 100 crew from their blood so they can get to the ground, because they haven't been there in 100 years. Of course, this is where President Wallace and his son are introduced. They get to the mountain, of course, and the son makes a deal with the Grounders to release their people if they go away from the mountain, and basically the 100 and the people from the Ark have to go in and try to save them, in which they almost do, but they all end up getting locked up except for Clark and Bellamy, Monty, and a few others. They end up pulling the switch that lets in radiation, basically killing the whole mountain, and this is what leads to Jasper being super depressed in the next couple seasons because he made a girlfriend there pretty much in Maya, and she ends up getting killed. They all end up going back to Arcadia, and Clark ends up running away because, you know, she didn't want to face the faces of the people because she knew all the people that she killed in order to save the 100 crew. Bellamy tries to convince her, but she doesn't listen, and she ends up going away, and the season ends. Overall, I think it's a really great season. That's why it's in my top 3. Great acting, great scenery, great characters introduced, and it's a fantastic season all around. And coming in as second place, just narrowly losing to first, is Season 3. Season 3 is just a phenomenal season, of course, where Allie is introduced. And, of course, she does a fantastic job. Of course, Jaha bringing the chip to Arcadia, and it's spreading throughout the entire area. Going from Arcadia to Polis, and basically everyone getting mind wiped and basically forgetting everything and being controlled by this AI. The acting is phenomenal, and the characters have a lot of development in this season. Though I will say that Bellamy basically turning to Pike and turning to the bad side, it wasn't great. Obviously, I think it was because Clark wasn't there. I think it was a big factor because he does rely on Clark for a lot of things, being like a co-leader with him. Of course, in the end, they end up defeating Allie, and unfortunately, Lexa gets killed by Titus, and, that wasn't great. And I know I'm leaving out a lot of details for these, but I also don't want to make this video an hour long, so, Season 2, fantastic season, great acting, great plot. Of course, Pike was introduced this season. He was not great. He started off okay, but then wasn't great, and basically just led the Sky Crew, they call them, down a bad hole. Clark basically convincing Lexa not to kill her people, and everybody getting mad about it. And basically that caused her to die because Titus did not like that Lexa was changing for Clark and ended up killing her because of it, which was very, very sad. But overall, the season ended on a high note, and the acting again was fantastic, and it was a great season all around. And it just narrowly got second place because I believe the first place award winner just was fantastic and a little bit better than Season 3. Finally, coming in first place is Season 4. Now, Season 4 and Season 3 have been very interchangeable for me. It could always depend on if I just watch Season 3 or Season 4, or my mood, or how I feel about the seasons. But right now, Season 4, I think, is the best season overall. It's the season where we finally get everybody together and not being split up like pretty much every season. And that's including seasons before and after. We get the whole crew together trying to stop Prime Fire. I think this is the best season also for Rowan. He becomes King Rowan. They end up saving him, and they try to find a way to stop Prime Fire. They end up thinking that they can fix up the ship at Arcadia, and in doing so, saving their people, but not really anybody else's. And of course, Jaha goes off to try to find the bunker, and they end up finding the bunker. And of course, they try to stop a war from happening between Azgeda and Tree Crew. And Clark tries to become the commander so that she can stop the war from happening and try to save everybody, but they end up not letting it happen. They end up having a conclave to see which clan gets the bunker, which I think is probably the best part of the season. Octavia ends up winning, and they end up locking the bunker so that nobody else can get in, but they end up opening it from the inside from Bellamy. And of course, they try to go save Raven over in Becca's lab, but by the time they get there, the bunker is already sealed and they can't get back, so they end up going up to space, or at least the majority of them. Clark gets left behind so that they can actually open the door once they get up to space. And they get up there, they finally plug in the oxygen tank, and they end up staying up there for, I think, a little over 5 years. I can't remember exactly how long they were up there, but Clark ends up surviving because she had the Nightblood, ends up meeting Maddie, and they show that they think that the ship is coming down from the Ark, and it ends up being the Aegis prisoners, which ends up in season 5. So overall, this was just a fantastic season, fantastic acting, fantastic storyline. I thought the whole story as a whole was great. Some of the best acting I've seen in a show. And yeah, that's my first place show, or excuse me, my first place of this season. I just want to thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I know it was a long one, and I know there's a lot of stuff I missed everywhere in each season, but I wanted to not make this video over an hour long. So if you stuck here to the end, I appreciate it so much. And as always, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I will see you in a couple days with a new video. Thank you.